Welcome to the Smart Gamble here. A little bit of a different view here, CJ, as Lily and I are next to each other. Together.
I am very jealous. I'm very jealous. I'll just put it out there. I'm putting it out there.
We've always been jealous of you out in Vegas, but
Yes.
Lily, tell obviously our listeners and viewers on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and tell the viewers here on locale where we're at.
We are at Detzi's Tavern in Wind Gap, Pennsylvania. This has been one of my stomping grounds for the last 7 years.
Nice.
And triplets Joe, John, and Jeff own the bar. They took it over from their dad, and they almost doubled the size of the place. And the food is awesome, reasonable prices. It's a great place to come.
Great little watering hole here in Wind Gap, and glad to be hosted by them, by the triplets, and by Detzi's Tavern here.
Thanks, Joe. Everybody wave to Joe.
Everyone wave to Joe. And it's the reason why we're here is this is the best weekend in football, is it not? It's the divisional round. It is the best weekend in football by far. 4 games, the best 8 teams left before we decide who makes the Super Bowl. And this is going to be an annual thing. This is the first time we're here. So next year, if you're missing out, if you're like, man, I wish I could have came here, we'll be here next year. But thanks to everyone listening, tuning in, and showed up. But guys, let's talk about it. It is the best weekend in football. And we got some great picks to go to, some great games to pick from. But last week, what the hell happened last week?
Yeah, I read an article on the net about that NFL chose to have more quantity versus quality, and so we had 4 games that were blowout. They were just stinkers, and
absolutely
not liking that at all. So I mean, I'm hoping the product didn't suffer because of that, but it was just a bad weekend of football overall.
Yeah, we had 4 blowouts all in a row. Raiders, Bengals gave us a little bit of a game. That one was pretty exciting. But did you guys see the Patriots getting blown out like that?
It was actually, you know what? I didn't see a blowout, but I thought it was a bad matchup for the Patriots. I think the Bills at home in that weather, rookie quarterback on the Patriots, I didn't think that they would do that well. I thought they would lose. I didn't think they would get blown out by 30, but I thought they would lose. So I just thought it was a bad matchup for the Patriots.
Right. Like, we even said last week, Chiefs, Steelers, Eagles, Bucks. Like, we could have saw those games being a little bit lopsided, but I don't think we saw the blowouts that we got. Arizona's.
They didn't get past their own 29-yard line until the third quarter.
Pathetic.
I guess that's the question we could ask from, if we're going to talk about last week before we get to this week, is we had teams lose by like 30 points, and yet was the Cardinals the most embarrassing performance? Who was the most embarrassing performance last week?
I would say that last week, the Cardinals, along with the last 8 games of the season for the Cardinals, I mean, they were 8-0, I believe, 7-0, 8-0.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, something happened. And again, I'm blaming the coach on that one. There were games like last week where they simply were not prepared for that game.
Right.
And I'm blaming the coach on that one. So, yeah, embarrassing for sure, but not just that game, the last half of the season, plus that game last week.
Yeah.
I blame on the coach.
Yeah, and CJ and I did pretty well last week picking.
Yes, you guys did.
I went 4-2. He went 5-1.
Despite all the madness.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's the reason why everyone's going to tune in and everyone shows up here, is because you guys are betting experts, and we're going to be getting to those picks for divisional round in just a little bit. But we haven't really touched on one game yet, guys, from last week.
Ahem.
And that would be the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh boy,
making another early exit out of the playoffs.
Right.
Who's to blame for that? I mean, obviously the late game clock management was what everyone is taking away from that game, and not getting up to the ball on time. The ref shoving Dak Prescott to get to the ball to place it, and all that happened. But who ultimately has to take the blame for that Cowboys loss? They were not expected to be a first-round exit.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Lily?
Michael McCarthy.
Okay.
Yeah. To do a running play when you have no timeouts left they literally, all the Dallas fans just watched their season time out. That was it.
I was cheering. I was cheering for that clock throw. Count down. Let's go.
Yeah, I was shocked because the previous 3 or 4 plays, they were throwing the ball to the sideline. They did very well conserving the clock, getting out of bounds. I think Kellen Moore did a good job of making those play calls. I'm not quite sure who the decision was for that last play call, but I would say why not keep throwing it to the sideline until you absolutely have to do something in the end zone. But it's really easy for me to blame the coach because I don't think he's a good coach, first of all. I just don't think he's a very good coach.
I think we're all three in agreement.
And then the offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, as well.
Right. But you know something, though? I think I blame Dak. I give a good, healthy amount. I mean, and I like Dak a lot, but he's a $40 million quarterback, and he did not play. They scored 17 points in that game. I didn't like the way he managed that game as a quarterback. I think he could have been better in that.
And even whatever play call comes into the helmet that you've got to call, you still got to have the awareness of, wow, they're letting me run. Maybe they're letting me run this clock. He's got to have the in between his own ears kind of game management, game awareness to realize that he's got to have enough time to clock that ball in the next play. So I can't argue with either of you two. I'll even go even further. You know who I blame for this? Jerry Jones.
Oh, conspiracy theory.
I'm going, and not just for this game, just as a whole, the Cowboys, just in general, have since the 90s have been kind of the same team. They've had these great teams that they put together that they win the division, but they get to the playoffs, and it just always seems like the moment's too big for them, which is so strange because they're the Dallas Cowboys. No moment should be too big if you play for the Dallas Cowboys. And I don't, whether it is, who hired Mike McCarthy? It's Jerry Jones.
Jerry Jones, yeah.
Who picks these players? It's Jerry Jones. So I know he ain't firing himself. So like that's not going to be a solution to this. But I always love blaming him, so I'm going to throw that out there.
Yeah, well, I go back to an exchange you and I had earlier this year about that. I was putting Dallas Cowboys in the upper echelon of teams, maybe top 4 or 6 teams and so forth, mainly because of the talent. Any team that has that much talent on that roster should not go out in the first round. No way. So, so I think coaching and the ownership has something to do. There's some kind of thing that permeates that DNA. I mean, the coaches are usually yes men, and I think that players just simply do not play up to their potential. That's basically what's happening here.
Right, exactly. That's where I throw that out there. Well, let's talk about the Eagles real quick too. I mean, are you sold, CJ? Are you sold, Lily, on Jalen Hurts?
No.
Your thoughts? No. Okay.
Well, I mean, first of all, on his side, I have to say that he has not had the same offense since he was 16 or 17 years old in high school. Okay, how crazy is that?
Right? Yeah. You know what?
So, I mean, it's almost like you're kind of leaning towards
Alabama to Oklahoma to different coach second year at Philadelphia. Yeah, that's
to
not
almost excusing it, but they did make a commitment today that he is going to be the starting quarterback for 2022. And let me tell you, his quarterback rating for 2021 and 2022 was about 87.5, which.
It's not bad.
No, but perfect is like 158.3, so that kind of shows you
the top echelon quarterbacks are in those 90s, 100s for a season. 120s,
yep.
Yeah. I again, I don't think he's the answer, but I don't think he's a problem. Put it that way.
Right.
I think I saw him at Alabama and Oklahoma this last year in college, and he got a little bit better as a passer. I think the right coaching scheme, the right offensive scheme can help him be a better quarterback, be a better passer of the football. We know he can run, and we know he can pull it down when he drops back to pass and pulls it down to run. But I think he needs to be a better pocket passer when he intends to pass the ball. And I think there's got to be a coach out there, maybe Kellen Moore, who knows, can help that guy become a better thrower of the football. That's my thing. So not the answer, but not the problem. Right.
And that leads to so where do they go from here? The Eagles have 3 first-round picks this year. That's something that you got to account for. Is they, as much as you want to say, first-round disappointing exit in the playoffs. Who expected the Eagles to make the playoffs this year? They were expected to be the bottom of the NFC East, though, and they ended up being a wild card team. Sure, the last one, but they were a wild card team, and now with 3 first-round picks is they have to improve. I think next year, I'm all right with them coming out and saying, hey, we're committing to Jalen Hurts for one more season, at least for the 2022 season. One, because there's not – what quarterbacks are going to be available this year that are going to be better than him?
Mm-hmm.
You look at the draft class, it doesn't seem like there's going to be too many, can't-miss quarterbacks, and I don't know who's going to be out there in free agency unless they want to go trade for Russell Wilson. So I think you build around him for one season. You spend all these picks to build around him, and next season's a make-or-break year, and you see where you go from there, right?
Yeah, I think the bad news is that, first of all, there's no Trevor Lawrence in the draft this coming year,
Right.
so you really can't get a bazooka-armed kind of quarterback out there. And the other thing that might be a bit of bad news for the Eagles is, has he hit his ceiling? Have you seen the best of Jalen Hurts as a quarterback? But the good news is that you have a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco who throws it maybe 12 times a game, but the running game and the defense is really what that team's all about. I think I can see Jalen Hurts being that kind of a quarterback. You don't pay him $40 million a year, but you maybe pay him 20 and say, hey, hand the ball off. You can run it once in a while and have that team be a running first offensive team. That team can actually win games in Philadelphia.
Right. You're 100% if they stick to that formula. I think they can build something there. All right. Well, speaking of building a formula, there's like 8 teams out there trying to rebuild their formula, looking for coaches, and a couple of GMs out there. I'm a little surprised, guys. We talked about this last week before the wild card round. That hey, we're in the end of January here. We're in the divisional round. Like, where are all the hirings? Right? Are you guys? Did you guys expect more hirings to happen so far?
Yes.
You know something? I think first of all, there are a lot of retreads out there. I mean, I heard the name Jim freaking Caldwell. Jim Caldwell. He's like 100 years old, and he's being considered for jobs. I think I want to see more of the Sean McVays,
right,
and the Shanahans out there, the guys who are 30-something, 40-somethings out there. The problem is, are there any out there? I don't know if there are any really boy wonders out there other than maybe Kellen Moore.
Yeah,
he's probably the only guy.
And who knows what Dallas does to try and keep him there. See, speaking of Jerry Jones, like, he can open the checkbook and pay his assistant, his offensive coordinator $3 million to stay there or something like that, because
open the vault.
He's willing to do that, and I don't blame him, because I don't trust the head coach, and Kellen Moore might be a better choice in a year or two. But we've had all these interviews. Lily, I know you're losing your mind at some of these interviews.
Goodness, Chicago Bears, 11. They are interview whores. That's what they are. The Chicago Bears interviewed 11 head coaches and 12 general managers.
Speaking of the phrase interview whores, I saw that, we do this little show prep, and I'm seeing the phrase interview whores. Like, what the hell is that all about? So I figured there was a story behind that. So you just explain it to me. So
right, and on the show prep, that was talking about Minnesota, who was interviewing 1 million people beforehand. So
right,
and that's funny, because it's Minnesota and Chicago, and then my New York Giants that were the 3 teams that were also interviewing general managers, besides head coaches. What do you think? So the Giants are the one team that's actually hired someone. They hired a general manager in Joe Shane from Buffalo, who I love it. As a Giants fan, I love the move. I think he was the right guy to hire. You're coming from a great culture, a team that, since him and Brandon Beane have come in there, they've made the playoffs 4 out of 5 years. All the talent on that team. You hope they can bring something there. And that might lead to Brian Dable, the offensive coordinator in Buffalo, being the next head coach for the Giants too. And I'm right there with you, CJ. I love Brian Flores as a candidate for head coach, and the Giants are going to be interviewing him as well. But I don't love these retreads either. If it didn't work in one place, is it going to work in another? We've seen it go both ways. But I'm like you. I want to see someone fresh, someone that hasn't done it yet. So bring in a Brian Dable and see how it goes. But Chicago and Minnesota are interviewing coaches and GMs at the same time. That doesn't make sense to me, right? The Giants are now saying, all right, Joe Shane, you're hired. Now we'll start a head coaching search with you in charge.
Yeah, I like seeing GMs come in with a vision. Are we going to be a defensive-oriented team? I think Chicago has had those teams for years and years. Are we going to get a guy who can come in here and revolutionize our offense? It starts with the GM, and then you get the players who can fit that scheme. So to me, it makes more sense. Hire the GM and then go after a coach who fits your vision. So I think the Giants did it right. The question is going to be now, who do they go after?
Right, and that remains.
The coach goes.
Right, and I guess we'll have more to talk about that before championship week next week, because I would imagine that we will have at least a handful of coaches hired before we record next week's episode, right?
Yeah. And Joe Shane is going to set the precedent for who the head coach is.
Right.
No doubt about it.
Right. We might even have that Giants head coach, but some of those teams that we're only looking for head coaches that are on first interviews, second interviews, I would assume they might even fall today or even tomorrow before some of these games kick off. So we'll of course discuss those, but I think it's time to discuss this week's games, guys. Before we do that, though, Lily, again, remind everyone where we're at.
When I say Detzi's, you say
Hey, read those cue cards. Come on, guys. Come on, read those cue cards.
Well, audience participation here.
Timing is everything. Timing is everything.
At Detzi's Tavern in Wingap. Glad to be hosted by the triplets here at Detzi's Tavern.
yes.
It's great
Guys,
food.
great people here too.
If you're watching or listening to this, either later today, before the game's on Sunday, whenever, even if you come back and watch this episode later, if you haven't been here, come here. The food is great. The atmosphere is great. The staff and the owners are great. You can't beat this spot. And yeah, like you said, it's been extended. It's such a great little spot here.
Yep.
So let's jump into some games, guys, because I think that's what everyone's really here for, right?
Right.
Let's go through the schedule again. It's 2 games today, 2 games tomorrow,
Yep.
And we have the Sunday schedule that kind of gets us ready for the Super Bowl, the 3 o'clock and 6:30 kickoff. It always throws me off when they start getting away from the 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock. I'm like, wait, where's the game at 1 o'clock? But let's start with today's game at 4:15. Bengals Titans, the number 1 seed Tennessee Titans in the AFC, come out of their bye and have arguably the hottest team in the AFC coming in their house, right?
Joe Cool. Swaggy Joe is what I call Joe Burrow. That guy, he wears the cool looking glasses. He gets on the field, he puts it in your face. He doesn't care. I love this guy. I think this matchup, Bengals Titans, I think it would be easy for me to say, hey, Bengals are really, really hot. They're coming in with a hot quarterback, hot wide receiver, Jamar Chase. Joe Mixon is a really good running back. But I look at Tennessee. First of all, they're coming off a bye week and they're at home. 2, I think that the fact that Derrick Henry coming back, even if he plays limited snaps, it's got to be something that fires up that team in Tennessee. And then look at who Tennessee has beaten this year. Indianapolis twice, Buffalo, KC, the Chargers, the Saints, and the Niners.
Yeah.
They have a better resume. So I think they are a better team. And I think I look at Tannehill, I'm like, this guy is probably just an okay quarterback, but he's a whole lot more than an okay quarterback. He really
has had a revelation, a rejuvenated career going from Miami to Tennessee, and that I'm happy for him. I always liked Tannehill in Miami, and it never seemed to click. And since him and Mike Vrabel got together in Tennessee, it's been clicking. With all that said, though, I know everyone, we're all going to be throwing out locks here, and you guys are the experts here. I didn't do so well last week either. But I'm going to actually be picking the underdogs, the undercats in this one. I'm going to be taking the Bengals plus the 3.5, plus the 4, wherever you can get the line right now. I don't disagree with anything you just said there, CJ. But the line is at 3.5 or 4. The Bengals had 7 losses on this season. 4 of them were 3 points or less.
Okay.
5 of them were 5 points or less. So they play close games, even if they lose. And you mentioned Derrick Henry coming back. Even with Henry out, this team the Tennessee Titans are a running team. The Bengals sneakily actually have, if you look at the stats, a top 5 run defense in the entire league.
I noticed it. I noticed that.
With A.J. Brown, they went 11-2 out of 13 games.
Right. Yeah. I'm not saying the Titans are good. I'm not saying the Bengals might even win. But I think the Bengals keep this at least close. They might even win outright. I might pull a Lily here and take a dog to win outright.
Okay.
I'm taking the Bengals in this one. And if I had to take an over-under, I'm actually taking the under on this one. I think coming out of a bye and coming in with some new players, Derrick Henry, guy could have been MVP this season if he stayed healthy. We know
absolutely.
That. But
He
still
would have
coming
been MVP. He would have been, in my mind.
You're probably right.
He'll probably only have like 10 or 15 carries for this game. I'm not expecting any big numbers. His average normally is 30 carries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
integrating that new player, look, not new player, but that returning player though. I don't know if Tennessee comes out of the gates hot with this one off the bye, because they, why I mentioned starting this game, maybe the hottest team. Bengals are on that roll. They've played every week. They're in a rhythm. I don't know. Sometimes that bye takes these teams out of a rhythm that are number one seeds. So I'm banking on that happening, and I'm going to take the Bengals in this one.
Okay. How about you, Lily? Who are you taking?
I'm really torn with this game. This is like one of those stay away games for me. It really is. But I honestly think I would go with Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like Tennessee again. It's a hard choice. I think Tennessee slightly and the under, like you, Norm. Tennessee and the under.
All right, well, let's move on to tonight's game, which I think a lot of people have their eyes on. This is a lot of storylines in this one. Also, the other number one seed is Green Bay comes off their bye, hosting the 49ers. Aaron Rodgers loves to play the 49ers, his hometown team that snubbed them in that draft in 2005. Who you guys got in this one?
That's my lock of the week. San Fran again, week 3. I'm going with San Fran again.
Wow.
And Jimmy Garoppolo is 2-0 against Brady.
Yeah. I think
Sorry, it's Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers, yeah. Hey, Brady, Rodgers are the same guy, the goat and the little goat, so.
That might be next week's matchup.
That might be next week's matchup. There you go. Yeah, like Lily, I love the Niners here. I think the Niners, they have the perfect type of game. Again, I mentioned earlier, teams that run it very well in cold weather. And don't forget, the Niners and the Packers played earlier this year, and the Packers needed a last-second field goal to beat them by 2 in Green Bay.
Yeah.
So I think this is the kind of team I think that's going to give Green Bay a little bit of problems. I like the Niners. I wouldn't say they'll win outright, but I think they'll cover that 5.5 points.
Absolutely.
I don't know how I feel about this, as I'm going against both of you guys. You guys know a lot more about betting than I do. But let me at least throw out some stats to try and back that up. As Lily mentioned, Jimmy Garoppolo is 2-0 against Aaron Rodgers. The Niners in general are actually 3-0, going back to, I believe, Colin Kaepernick against Aaron Rodgers. The Aaron Rodgers Green Bay Packers are 0-3 the last 3 times they've met in the playoffs against the 49ers. But Jimmy Garoppolo has never played a game where the temperature at kickoff was less than 40 degrees. It is going to be minus degrees, I think, tonight in Green Bay.
Single numbers, -2 or something like that. Yeah, it's going to be crazy
I
cold.
woke up to 0 degrees this morning.
Right, here in the Poconos, we're in single digits. So we can only imagine what the frozen tundra of Green Bay is going to be like. Now, with that said, you mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo is that guy that throws the ball like 12 times a game, and they're going to rely on the run game, which almost leads to playing in cold weather, run game and defense. But Green Bay was too good this season. They've played in this before. They've got the experience. I think I would lean Green Bay in this one. I don't discredit anything you said about San Francisco. I'll say this even before we get to the other games. I could see any of these 8 teams winning this weekend. And I think that's why we're in for such a great weekend on Divisional Round, the best weekend of football. I was talking to Lily before the show. There was a stat thrown out. We're talking lines here. These are the lowest combined total against the spread in the history of the playoffs. In the history of the Divisional Round playoffs.
I saw that, yes.
Yeah, it was like 18 or 19.
18 or 19 was the original record before this, and now it's 13.5 combined points between all the teams. That's ridiculous.
Crazy,
what do you think about the over-under in this game, CJ?
It would be easy for me to think that both teams can score and go over. I'm going under in this one. So I'm going San Fran and under.
Me too.
I actually would like the under in this one. I actually will agree with you on something on this one. I think the number is low just because, you think cold weather and defense, but these teams sneakily can put up some points.
Yeah, and one fun fact about the whole Lambeau mystique, between 1939 and the year 2000, they were 12-0 in playoff games in Green Bay. Since then, 7-6.
Wow. Well,
that in mind.
And that's you know what? And speaking towards the over as well, you look at a lot of those games that Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, because of that, has lost in these playoff games. it hasn't been because of Aaron Rodgers. He puts up points in every playoff game.
He does.
And 9 times out of 10 in a loss is because his defense lit up more. It's the average amount of points that his defense lets up in playoffs is you wonder he's made it to the championship game and Super Bowl sometimes so many times. So speaking of making the Super Bowl a lot of times, let's move on to the first Sunday game, guys. We'll switch days here. 3:00 NFC game as well. It's that guy that's always playing around this time of year, Tom Brady, hosting the Los Angeles Rams.
Yep, you can write it down. Every year at this time, he's going to be there in that game and so forth. So all year long, I have been a Matt Stafford doubter. Maybe not a hater, but a Matt Stafford doubter.
I noticed that.
I'm not from Missouri, but you got to show me something here, Matt Stafford. Here, you are on the road against the GOATs with that team playing about as well as it has been playing all season long. If this is a game where you're going to make a name for yourself, Stafford, it's going to be this game. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen. I think that the Bucs take this game. I think the Bucs will cover. I think if the Rams have any chance in this game, it has to be by that defense, which has been the best part of their team, has been their front four, that defense. But I don't see the Rams coming out of this game with a win. I see the Bucs winning. I see the Bucs covering, and I have this game going under as well.
Yeah, me too. And the Rams are 2-0 against the Bucs, by the way, in the playoffs.
Okay, that's good to know.
Interesting. Okay. So you're taking.
I'm taking the Rams.
You're taking the Rams.
Taking Rams. Okay. Rams in the under.
Rams.
Yeah, and the under. Yep.
Okay.
Interesting. I think this one. I have one thing written down on this game, CJ, and you pretty much nailed it right on the head. Stafford prove it game. You don't go out and trade all those picks and make all these moves, bring in Odell Beckham, all that, to lose in the divisional round. This is a guy that, on the Detroit Lions was putting up all these crazy numbers, and obviously he performed well again this season. And then you look at the other side, this is a team that just a few years ago made the Super Bowl against Tom Brady on when he was in New England with Jared Goff.
Yeah.
So if this is supposed to be some big improvement going from Goff to Stafford, you've got to make it out of this round. Now, obviously, I think playing Brady in the divisional round doesn't help, but I think, like you mentioned, that front four for Los Angeles is the key, because the Giants put out the blueprint in 2007 when they played Brady the first time. How do you beat Brady? You pressure him with 4 guys. You don't blitz. You drop back 7, and you get pressure on him with 4 guys. There's very few teams in the league that can do that. The Rams are one of them, though. And that's why I think I actually agree with Willie. I might take the Rams.
Yeah, I think that folks who are taking the Rams, I think the other thing to think about as well, in the Rams' favor, is that earlier in the season, Odell was just kind of getting himself acclimated to that offense. He seems like he's ready right now to make a big contribution. He's been doing well. So you have him, you have Cooper Kupp, who's had the best wide receiver year in a long time. So that would be a good reason to go with the Rams. I'm going against the grain, I guess, by going with the Bucs. But the Rams, obviously, with those 2 guys get going, the Rams have a chance.
You're not going against the grain because you're betting with Tom Brady. And there's about 20 years of evidence saying that's not going against the grain.
20 years and 7 rings, baby, 7 rings.
It's never a bad idea to do that. But I also sneakily don't want to forget to mention he showed up last week and had an impact. Cam Akers coming off the IR. Guy who's going to be the starting running back before the season started and he gets hurt. You can't, like Derrick Henry coming back for Tennessee, you can't discredit his impact on that offense as well.
Yeah, and you're a big fantasy guy, and Cam Akers was one of the guys I targeted as a running back in the draft, and I said, this guy's got hurt, and so I had to go a different direction.
Drafted him in 2 leagues before he got hurt.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. So, but he's a guy who's an impact player for sure, no doubt.
100%. So I think let's move on to – I was about to say the premier game of this weekend, but I don't know if you could say that about any of these games. They're all premier games, but
they're all good.
We will say the lowest point spread between any of these teams. And this Bills-Chiefs Sunday night. It's a reason why this game's a Sunday primetime game in the Super Bowl spot.
Right.
What do you guys think? I almost don't even want to give my thoughts in this game because I just want to enjoy this game.
I definitely like Buffalo.
Wow.
And the over.
And the over. So a shootout, huh?
Yes. Total shootout.
The total. I mean, what's
It's going to go back and forth, back and forth.
what do you guys have? I have 54 as the total.
I have 54 as the over under. It was 55 and a half, I think, at one point. 54 today on ESPN.com.
Right.
So still a hefty amount of points. Hefty. This actually is funny. The spread is now 1.5. It was 2.5. So this spread is actually going more toward the Bills.
Yeah.
So either there's something wrong. I mean, something about the people who are betting, they're betting heavily on one side, or Vegas knows something. So this one is interesting. We had a segment on this show all year round, knowing about which team would I stay away from, which game. This would be the game I would not want to bet. And that, like you, I would want to enjoy it. And the other part about this game for me is that this is a heart pick. I'm rooting for the Bills, but I know that KC at home in the playoffs does very well. So I would not. Here I am in Vegas, but I would not put any money on this game because of that reason. I don't want to go with my heart or against my heart. I just want to enjoy this game.
Right. Yeah. I completely agree with you. And this is, I can kind of understand the country betting on the Bills after what they did to the Patriots last week. And I mean, I'll ask you this: are you sold on KC? We've seen Jekyll and Hyde out of the Chiefs this season. Early on, they looked like, what's wrong? Everyone's asking, what's wrong? Mahomes doesn't look right. The defense is the worst defense in the league. They've obviously turned it around to winning that division, being one of the top teams in the AFC. But are you still sold on this team? Like, if you had to compare this team to either the Super Bowl winning team from 2 years ago, or the team that made it to the Super Bowl and lost last year, where does this rank out of the three? It's probably the third, right?
Probably the third, yeah. And it's funny, you say that. When I think of the Chiefs, I think of all those offensive weapons. It obviously started with Mahomes and Travis Kelce and all those great wide receivers and running backs. But when they lost last year, it was because the defensive line is not what it was. Chris Jones isn't the same guy. They don't run the ball the same way they did a couple of years ago. So yes, maybe in October I would have said no way this team gets this far. They're better now, but they're not anywhere near as good as they were a couple of years ago when they were winning all those winning games in the playoffs and so forth. So I would say they are Jekyll and Hyde, but they are playing better now than they were 8 weeks ago.
Right. I think the total is a little high for my blood, so I think I would take the under if I had to bet it. But like you see, this is a stay away game for me. I'm going to enjoy it, and to me, enjoy it. I'll take all those points, but I don't know if I could bet it.
Yeah. Well, this is the betting show, so I guess we have to make this pick. So right. I think my heart says Buffalo. My actually head says Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will cover this game by a field goal. And I will go against the grain and go under, slightly under. I think it's going to be a defensive struggle for parts of this game. And I think that it's going to be wind up a field goal game in the Chiefs' favor, probably last second field goal by Butker.
Right. So that's all 4 games.
Yeah. Did you want to go into the power rankings?
I would say before we quickly talk on the power rankings is what do you think is the best team that's going to win on the road? We only had one road team win last week.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, how many road teams do you think win this week? I know Lily loves picking the underdogs. Who's got the best shot to win on the road, and how many do you think actually do win on the road?
I like Buffalo, and then second Rams.
Okay. All right, so I'll be a little bit different. I think that even though I don't think that the San Fran 49ers will win, I think they have the best chance of winning. But I also agree with you, Lily, on Buffalo. I think they have a good chance as well. So I would say San Fran first and then Buffalo as far as road teams winning.
I threw out my lock as being Cincinnati, but so I'd look like a fool if I didn't say they're my team with the best chance to win. But I do have some sort of logic behind that is Kansas City won a lot of stadiums in the league. I don't know if I like playing there. Green Bay, we just mentioned how cold it's going to be. And the Bucs, Brady at home, no matter what stadium, whatever team it is, isn't ever easy to beat. I don't know if the Titans have that big of a home field advantage. It's supposed to be gorgeous there in Nashville. So I think it's going to be as equal a playing field between the Bengals and Titans as there is. So that's why I think the Bengals got the best chance.
Yeah, hey, I've been to Nashville a few times. Great city, not intimidating, but it's a great city. So I don't know if it'll be intimidating for the Bengals either. But so I think you have a good point there. Whereas Green Bay, the frozen treasure. I've been to Green Bay one time to see a game. It is the mecca of football stadium. So you got to go one time if you have a chance to go.
On my
Green
bucket
Bay.
list.
Yes, definitely. But the city of Nashville is a cool city, but I don't think that the stadium itself or the team, the fans are that intimidating. So I think you may have a good point there as far as the Bengals not feeling intimidating going to the Nashville stadium there.
So Lily brought them up. We've talked about all the games. Let's see what the actual power rankings from NFL Network say about what we said. Because I think Lily mentioned there's might see some prizes in what the power rankings these 8 teams left.
There's definitely one team that I can't see how they're placed where they are. But
okay, let's do it.
Let's go through it. First, Green Bay, of course, previously number 1, probably for the last 4 weeks, I guess.
Right, even more. I think it might even be more.
Yeah, 2, Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
Number 5.
Oh, wow. That Patriots win must have really, the line moving, their power rankings moving, people must have loved it.
Oh, yeah. Kansas City stayed the same. They're at number 3.
Okay.
Okay. 4 is Tampa Bay, previously number 2.
Wow.
What do you think about that, CJ?
I'm agreeing with those. I agree. I would maybe put Tampa maybe slightly ahead of Buffalo, because Buffalo has done it, just a one game. I think Tampa's been doing it for a long time, so I would move Tampa ahead of Buffalo in my mind.
I'm waiting to hear where Tennessee is. They're the number 1 seed.
Tennessee is number 5.
Okay.
Previously number 4.
Okay.
6 is the Bengals. They stayed the same. Previously number 6.
Oh, with the Bengals. We are. That's where I'm picking.
All right.
It's going to be a great game.
It is. Number 7, San Fran. Also number 7 last week.
Okay.
And then 8, this is the one I don't agree with, is the Rams.
The Rams are number 8 out of 8.
They were previously 8 too. I don't understand why the Rams are ranked number 8. I just don't. Right?
Yeah. Again, the 2 teams I think are ranked a little bit too low for me. I think San Fran is a little bit too low, and then Tampa's a little bit too low in my mind. But you have 8 teams that you can put these guys in a hat and pull it out, and you can still have a pretty good chance of winning any game. So the Titans still need to have that signature win in the playoffs. They haven't played. We haven't seen them in a while now. I think they need that signature win. Like Buffalo had that signature win. The Buccaneers did well last week. The Rams did very well. We haven't seen Tennessee. It seemed like they've, for like a month.
Right.
So
they kind of
we've got to be reminded of how good they are again.
That kind of goes to why I'm taking the Bengals. Is the Titans are at 5. It's because it's like you almost forget they're the number 1 seed. That they're even in the, because they didn't play last week. You forget they're even in the playoffs.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, with Derrick Henry, it's an intimidation factor. Plus, it's like an emotional support for the team.
Right.
Yeah.
Him coming back is definitely going to be the X factor. How many touches he gets might really decide that game. It really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I came out number 2 in my pool this year.
Yes.
They killed it. They killed it.
The crowd here at Detzi's is of course asking. There's proof. You go check the YouTube. Go check the podcast. Lily's got all the backing that she
has the receipts.
Has the receipts. You too. As a reminder, we're here at Detzi's Tavern.
When I say Detzi's, you say Detzi.
There we go. Nice. There we go.
Hey, so show me a menu item of Detzi's. What will I totally just destroy on that menu? Like, give me the best.
Wings are great.
Okay.
I had the Blockbuster last night, which is hot ham, bacon, mayo. Love it. Great sandwich. The wings are great. The meatloaf's great.
Clams are great.
Clams are great.
Okay, so all the typical bar food is good.
Yeah, it's Meatloaf Mondays. I know that's a big hit.
Yep. And I think Wednesday's pasta night.
And pasta night as well.
Hey, you know something though? I judge a restaurant or a bar by how good their desserts are. Give me the most evil piece of chocolate you ever can imagine. You have that in the menu, I'm there.
Listen, I judge a place on the French onion soup. You're going to go to a bar, they got to have a good French onion soup. And I know Angie.
Yeah, Angie had it last night.
Lily's daughter was here last night with us, and she's here supporting the show as well. Former guest. I forget what week she was on with us, but if you were a regular watcher and listener, she was a guest on one episode. I know she had it, and it's you can't go wrong. It's the perfect, like the menu's not a long list of menu items, but you can't go wrong with a single one.
Right. And Angie, where did you end up in the pool? 13.
13.
She knows nothing about football. It was completely intuition. Completely
Runs in the
intuition.
blood. It runs in the blood, those picks, no matter what you know, it's going to be good.
Yeah, there you go.
So, I guess that does it, guys. I mean, we can just look forward to the Super Bowl. I know we gave our predictions last week. I know your predictions are all still intact. Mine are shot out of a cannon with the Cardinals last week. So I'm actually gonna throw a curveball here. Instead of throwing out predictions on who's gonna make the Super Bowl, we can maybe do that next week when there's 4 teams left.
Okay.
I want to ask you, out of the 8 teams left, what Super Bowl do you want to see? Like, what
What's
teams
your
are you
dream Super Bowl?
right? What are you rooting for to happen?
Yeah, I obviously we've seen Green Bay and actually no, we didn't see Green Bay. We saw Tampa and KC. I would like to see Green Bay and Buffalo. That's my dream Super Bowl. Green Bay, Buffalo.
I think Buffalo, if you had to pull America right now, which I'm sure someone has, we haven't looked it up, but I'm sure there's some news network out there that has. Buffalo is probably America's darling right now, right?
Yes.
They've got the Bills Mafia. They're going through tables and getting drunk and all this stuff like that. People can relate to that, right? So I think Buffalo is probably America. If your team is out, which, there's 24 teams that are, you're probably rooting for Buffalo.
Yeah, on my street here in Vegas, we got about maybe 4 or 5 houses. They're all Buffalo Bills fans. They all came in from Buffalo, moved out here. And actually, I was at a party with these guys a couple of months ago, and these guys love to party. Bills Mafia is a thing. It's a thing. So.
Absolutely. Lily, what about yours?
My dream Super Bowl would be the Bengals and Green Bay, because I'd like to see Aaron go out with a win with his last game with Green Bay, and Joe Coolborough, he's the man.
Swaggy Joe.
Them in the Super Bowl.
Right.
Love to see that. And I like their uniforms too. I got to be a girl for a minute.
I don't think you can go wrong with that. I'm gonna actually kind of agree with Lily here. I would root for the Bengals just because I'm such a big Joe Burrow fan. I would love to see him in the Super Bowl. And it's just the other team, I'd love to see the Bills too. And I think the Chiefs, while I enjoy watching them, let's get a little change of pace here, right?
Okay.
They've been in 2 years in a row now, and it feels like the AFC has been dominated by the same teams over and over and over the last 2 decades. It was either Brady, Manning, or Roethlisberger every single year in the AFC. Let's not throw Mahomes into that now. But I would choose Cincinnati, and I'll agree. I want to see Aaron Rodgers go out on top. I don't know about you, CJ. I think Lily and I are in agreement that we are actually fans of Aaron Rodgers. I know he's a very polarizing dude in the NFL, and you either love him or hate him. I'd like to see him, kind of bet on himself. He finally came into agreement with Green Bay. They settled on hey, let's give this one last ride into the sunset. Let him go out into the sunset with a Super Bowl win, right?
Yeah, I'm actually on the love train side of Aaron Rodgers. I don't hate him at all. I mean, he had that one little blip early this year with the whole vaccination thing and whatever, But I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan as well, and I will want to see him go out. Here's a question for you guys: what team do you think America does not want to see in the Super Bowl?
Ooh,
ratings or whatever, perception, whatever.
I'm thinking the least amount of fans, probably Tennessee. What do you think?
I would say Tennessee because they probably play the most boring kind of football with the running the ball and the defense. They have the least amount of quote unquote stars. The Tannehills of the league. He's a good quarterback, but he's not. He doesn't have that star power. Even of Joe, you look at the other quarterbacks. Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. These are well-known guys, top of the league guys. Jimmy Garoppolo's got the good looks that all the ladies love and stuff like that.
Jimmy GQ.
Exactly. Ryan Tannehill is just kind of like a nondescript kind of guy. And even though Julio Jones is Julio Jones, people forget he's even on Tennessee sometimes.
Oh,
that's true. Well, I asked that question because, you guys actually read my mind because I was thinking Tennessee as well when I asked the question. So that's why the show works, because we kind of share
we're all
things going on here.
I'll throw the NFC side out. If it's Tennessee and the AFC, I think the NFC could be 2 teams, not for those reasons. I don't think there's any team that's quote-unquote boring like Tennessee is. I think just for rooting against purposes, obviously Brady's got a lot of haters, and people don't want to see him win yet another one.
Right.
So I think I think the Bucks
But
would
they
fall
have the
into that
best record
category
too, though. 14-4. They have the best record.
So they're up there, and you know, people don't like to see that. I also think the Rams have a lot of haters too. Would you not agree?
Interesting, because again, it is LA, so
It's
if you have it in
LA.
there, and the fans kind of come out in big numbers when LA is in there, but I think you might be right. I think of the 4 teams, the LA might be the 4th.
They've got the market share, of course, in the second biggest market and whatnot. But how many people are even still Rams fans that live in LA, though? You know, like for as big a city, having just moved there from St. Louis, I know they were there, you know, years ago. But like, I don't know how many have adopted to being a Rams fan in LA. I know they haven't adopted to being Chargers fans. I know that for sure.
That's true.
Also,
there are more Chargers fans in that room than it probably might be in the entire city of LA. So
right. I don't see too many Herbert jerseys in the room either. So. But I think also they've kind of got that like mercenary feel to them too. They like trade for these guys. I think Odell is a very polarizing player that a lot of people like to root against as well. So I think the Rams might fit into that category as well.
now the thing is, isn't the Super Bowl this year played in SoFi?
That's
So
right. It is. I didn't even think of that.
That's an interesting thing because if they make it, I don't think they will, but if they make it, now you have the home team.
The home team. That's always a thing. Yeah. Now I believe. I hate bringing it up, but I believe there is a contingency just in case, you know, that big C word gets worse there, and they have to move it. It moves to Dallas, but I believe, you know what? We still. Where was it last year? We almost had it happen last year.
Actually, I think it did. Wasn't it Tampa last year?
Oh, that's right. It was Tampa. Tampa played it.
Tampa hosted it. Yeah. First
So
time
imagine going 50-some-odd Super Bowls without a team hosting it in their own stadium to going 2 back-to-back.
What are the odds?
You know, who knows? Who knows? So, guys, let's wrap it up. I mean, best weekend of football is ahead of us. I think we got our thoughts out there. Any closing thoughts?
Just want to say thank you so much to Detzi's Tavern.
Right.
Thank you, Joe. When I say Detzi's, you say Detzi. Woo!
Nice.
Yeah.
And everybody tip your waitresses.
And of course, if you want to reach out to us, smartgamble@gmail.com is how you can reach out to us. Subscribe and like on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you check us out on every week. We will be back next weekend for championship weekend. 4 teams down, 4 out, 2 games on Sunday. We decide finally who makes the Super Bowl in this wild, wild season. And the first season of the Smart Gamble. So we'll finally we'll be getting down to the nitty-gritty. There's only a couple of shows, guys, left.
Right.
So as sad as that is, we're winding down here the podcast for the season, but we'll be back next week. I think we'll be back to the normal format. But again, thanks to Detzi's for hosting us.
Yep.
CJ, thank you. Lily, thank you. I'm Norm. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week.